Hello and welcome to Breaking Culture Live. Thanks for joining us. I'm Sean Johnson Andrews, your host, and I'm broadcasting here from Chicago, where we're having a serious heat wave, which I think is encompassing all of the folks on this call. Today, I'm really pleased to welcome Hil Malatino and his friend, my sister, Ashlee Andrews, to speak about Hil's new book, Climbing, out next week on Duke University Press. Hil Malatino is associate professor in the Department of Women's Gender and Sexuality Studies at Pennsylvania State University, a senior research associate in the Rock Ethics Institute, and affiliate faculty in the Department of Philosophy. He holds a doctoral degree in philosophy and a graduate certificate in feminist theory from Binghamton University. Malatino's work draws upon trans and intersex studies, critical sexuality studies, transnational feminisms, disability studies, and medical ethics to theorize how experiences of violence, trauma, and resilience play out in trans, intersex, and gender nonconforming lives. He's the author of many articles and three other books: Queer Embodiment, Trans Care, and Side Effects on Being Trans and Feeling Bad. I'm really delighted to have you in this space, Hil, so thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I'm stoked.
And Ashlee Andrews is associate professor in the Department of Liberal and Professional Studies at the University of North Carolina, Greensboro. She's a scholar of religion and an ethnographer of contemporary Hindu traditions with expertise in Bengali Hindu traditions as they are practiced in the geographic regions of West Bengal, India, and the Midwestern United States. She also frequently teaches and researches about the diverse evaluations Hindu traditions produce of embodiment, sexuality, and materiality, and the ways that those evaluations inform Hindu attitudes towards women, sexual minorities, and non gender conforming individuals. Her most recent book is Valuing Hindu Women's Domestic Shrine Traditions as Reproductive Labor. It's really great to meet you, Ashlee.
Yeah, Sean, it's so nice to meet you.
In all seriousness, Ashlee is my sister. I'm really glad to have her. She's also a friend of Hills, and so I thought this would be a great opportunity to have a conversation about this really engaging and thoughtful book that you've put together,
Mm.
Hil. This book is a bit of a departure from conventional academic press books. I know a lot of your other books feature personal narratives, but this one seems different. So I wonder if you can first say something about the genre, the series, and how you came to be involved, and what was your inspiration for writing this?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So the book is on Duke University's Practices series.
Mm.
And that series started, Margaret Grebowitz is the editor in charge of that. And that series started, I want to say like 3-ish years ago.
Mm.
Some of the first books I read from it were Lindsay Freeman's book on running, which is called Running, and Mackenzie Wark's book on raving, which is called
Mm,
Raving. And after reading those, I thought, like I am an
Mm.
expert at taking things I love and making them into work. So I might as well write this practice that I love that I've never written extensively about, but been deeply engaged with for years. Write a book about that. So I pitched it
Mm.
to Margaret, and part of the pitch had to do with having played a role in running the world's first and for a
Mhm.
time largest, although that may have been surpassed by this point, LGBTQ climbing convention, which I
Mhm.
did for a number of years. It used to be called Homo Climbtastic. The new group of leaders have rebranded it as Queer Climbtastic, which I have complicated feelings about, but
Yeah.
like I can
Mhm.
table that for the time being. Um, I'm like, let the youth do what they want. But anyway. I helped run that for a number of years, and we met 100 plus folks in the New River Gorge in West Virginia for about a week every summer. Not prime climbing season
Mm.
there. But I pitched the book initially to be about Homo Climbtastic and what it meant to run this sort of queer and trans climbing convention,
Mm.
and how that helped me think about embodiment differently, but also learn to inhabit my own body differently.
Mhm.
And Margaret, who it turns out is from, I believe, Poland, which has a massive sort of popular rock climbing culture, had already received a couple of pitches about books that were related to climbing or mountaineering and didn't really like them, or thought they weren't necessarily going to be great for the series, but was interested in mine. But then
Mm.
I sent the proposal. Margaret said, "Great, start working on the book, send it in when you have a draft of something." I said, "Okay." And then like a lot of life happened.
mm,
I
Mm.
lost both of my parents in a pretty short span, in addition to
Mm.
significant things happening, getting tenure, publishing some books, getting sober, etc. So like a lot of life. And it turned out that the book that I thought I was going to write ended up not being the book that I wrote.
Mhm. Mhm.
So yeah, so Climbing as it stands now is a book that is in part about that queer and trans climbing convention, but also largely about climbing in relationship to things like, grief and trauma, which makes it sound like a bummer. I don't think the book's a bummer, actually.
Mhm.
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 But it is about the relationship, my relationship to climbing is sort of refracted through some of those pretty difficult experiences. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's kind of how it came to be. And, I also, because I've been writing, I have like a little personal narrative in them, but nothing that's, um, just sort of more straightforward creative nonfiction. Um,
Mhm.
I kind of had to learn how to write it too. So I opened
Mm.
Yeah.
a number of times on the basis of, I think I went through peer review twice with the book, like full peer review.
Wow.
Whoa.
Yeah, which is great. It's like good on
Sure.
Duke for doing that
Mhm.
with these little books. They're awesome. It made the book a lot stronger. But one of my review, anonymous, but one of them I'm pretty sure has a significant background in creative writing and was
Mhm.
a great but tough editor. So I learned
Mhm.
Mhm.
about craft on the way.
Well, it's really engaging and uh, thought provoking and touching in a lot of ways.
Mhm.
So it
Mhm.
works. Although I can the work that you put into it, a
Yes.
lot of work, but it also works. Um, yeah.
Yeah, it's actually, I was
Go
gonna
ahead.
say it's hard to imagine the book without those major life events.
Totally. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
hard to imagine it. I mean, like you said, it's a completely different book from what you initially thought you were going to write. But for me, like what the book is in my reading of it um, it is about climbing, and I actually learned a lot about climbing by reading it. And I learned a lot about the climbing community, but also more than that, climbing is this really fruitful metaphor for for navigating the really tough stuff about life. But also, I think when I finished the book, what it felt to me like was that it was about the significance of meaning making, of making like this book is it's parsing out the meaning that this practice has had for you is sort of how I read it. um and and then I think too, then it kind of, for me, it hooks into the necessity of making meaning in life generally. And you do talk about that, and you bring up existentialism and and I guess in reading it too, something that stood out for me related to that was this theme that um, not just that we have to make meaning from our life, but we kind of have to decide why we want to live it.
Yeah.
And that was something that kind of stood out to me. So it's hard. It's like really hard to think about the book being just like about anything other than the really poignant, difficult, lifey things that that
Mhm.
come up in it. But
Yeah.
it's beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you. It's like the meaning. There's this famous quote, and I don't remember. It's one of like the old sort of, I'm gonna say like the old Yosemite Hardman. That's what the
Okay.
term of
Mm,
art is. Um, Many of them, most of them were men back in the day. But one of them, I think, said something about, climbing being about becoming emperors of the useless. And that
mm,
always stuck with me because on the one hand, right, I mean, it makes total sense. Like, what the fuck is the point of doing this? Especially if you're not thinking about mountaineering, in which case the point is to get to a summit that maybe hasn't been climbed before. But the kind of climbing I
mhm.
do is like getting to the top of a boulder or getting to the top of an 80 pitch single pitch route or an 80 feet single pitch route. Um, there's no real point to it. And it was really enigmatic to me for years because I was clearly obsessed with it. And
Mm.
wasn't really too concerned with why because I was just throwing myself right at all of these different boulder problems and climbs and just super stoked on it and not
Mhm.
particularly meditative about it. Um,
Mm.
but as soon as you take a step back, you're like, I'm sinking hundreds and thousands of hours of my life into this activity that,
Mhm.
based on the face of it, has no real point. Like at the top, you
Mm.
get to the top of the time and then you're like, okay, lower and do another one. It's sort of, infinitely repeatable. It's also
Mm.
really difficult, but I was like, for me, I don't think the point is the difficulty, although that's part of it.
Mm.
There's some climbers that are driven to, become sort of elite and to put up really, really hard routes. But I wasn't one of those. So I was just kind of like, what's the what here? Like why?
Mhm.
So the
Mhm.
book is largely me figuring that out and me figuring that out in relationship to, I think, the passing of my parents. Um,
Mhm.
that sort of helping me unravel that puzzle of why I was so sort of invested in this thing.
Mhm. Mhm.
Like, for what? I don't know how it's making the world a better place necessarily. I don't know.
Right.
There's nothing tangible at the end of the day when you spend the day doing it. So, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I agree. All those sections. It's really hard to imagine a book just about climbing. I think I probably would have been a lot less interested in it, honestly. Um,
There
uh,
are also, to be fair, plenty of books that are just about that, if you want
oh,
to,
I
Yeah.
know. Well, I mean,
right?
and I'm
If
sure I
one
could
wants
get
to do
into it. I would
that.
have to cultivate that interest for sure, and I would definitely. But the the way that you integrate these
Mhm.
experiences and these profound things that we're all kind of dealing with makes it
Mhm.
a really awesome metaphor. And I want to talk about the other piece of it that you kind of pull together, especially in the beginning where you're kind of talking about how climbing helped you get into your body in a way
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
and you kind of you come after or you give Bessel van der Kolk some uh like some critique for talking about risky behavior being something that is
Mhm.
a problem, and you kind of say, well, this is, I mean, you'd say it better. I know, but that risk was really part of what helped you inhabit your body at
Mhm.
a really crucial moment. That this is a crucial moment in your life that you come to climbing, um, and also that climbing is not in many ways not has not been a space where people that have non-cis het thin muscular bodies in general come to.
Mhm. Mhm.
Uh, and you say that twice in the book, you say that the story of climbing is that you hated having a body and now you don't.
Mhm.
So I don't know that seems to be an important relationship between transition, which I guess does this also have a a climbing meaning, this word, or is it, or am I just kind of reading that into the moments when you talk about
Mm.
transition?
No, I mean it does. And I actually don't think I write about it explicitly in the book, but transition in the context of climbing refers to the moments where you either arrive to the crag and are sort of moving into, roping up and beginning a climb for the day, or the moments where you're on a multi-pitch climb and you're swapping
Mhm.
who leads, or you're sort of resetting your rope systems and sorting out your
Mhm.
gear to begin the next component of the climb or the next pitch of the climb. Those are all sort of transitional moments. And
Mhm,
one of the hallmarks of experienced climbers is that they handle those transitional moments really efficiently as they sort of
Mhm.
navigate the pragmatics of the climb. Yeah, but I don't write
Mhm.
about that, but it took, people talk about it in climbing all the time, for sure.
Mhm.
it's a moment of rest in
I mean,
in a way, or a moment where you're not as actively engaged in changing or moving or getting to the place.
yeah, it's a moment where you're engaged in laying the groundwork for the next thing, for the
Mhm.
Yeah.
next sort of stage of movement. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep.
Interesting.
I mean, you say that the book is about the practice of climbing, but I mean, you have a moment where you say that it's actually more about the practice of falling well, um,
Mhm.
which I thought is I think that kind of runs through the book in a really profound way, and I
Mhm.
just wanted to share that over the weekend, uh, while I was in the emergency room waiting for my mother-in-law to get stitches in the back of her head after she fell in her nursing home room, she wanted me to read something out loud to her, and it just happened to be this section. So we were kind of joking about the notion that she needed to learn to fall well. But but I think falling well seems to be something, and self-arrest. This seems to be a theme running throughout the book. I wonder if you can talk about falling, because that's, I would say you could actually say that the book is about falling as much as
Yeah,
it is about climbing.
largely, yeah. The following thing is so, I mean, on like the literal level, one of the things that I think is, I know I said earlier, at the end of a day climbing, there's no like tangible thing you have to show for it, but there are in an embodied sense. And one of them is like the sort of enhanced proprioception that you develop when you climb consistently. And I thought about that a lot as I was watching my parents age and I was watching them sort of become ill. Um, and it's not that this is, I don't want to suggest like everybody should climb because then you're less likely to fall in old age, but there might actually be something to developing this
Mhm.
sort of enhanced proprioception and also grip strength, which is another thing. Being sort of under cultivated skills that many of us have because we spend so much time, you know, sedentary, right, for various reasons, most of which are related to capital. Um, yeah, that climbing actually is really imperative in terms of teaching you sort of balance and the ability to catch falls. But then, as a metaphor, and again, not just as a metaphor, like climbing necessitates showing up in public situations on a regular basis and letting people witness you just totally fucking flailing. Like that's what you have to get used to, especially as if you learn to climb in a gym, which is how most people learn to climb these days.
Mhm.
And it's even true when you're, at a crag too, when you're out in the wilderness most of the time. Um, yeah, you have to really embrace being witnessed failing and being witnessed being
Mhm.
it's something like really bad. And that's true
Mhm.
the entire way through a climbing career because as you sort of advance in skill, you tend to just be climbing with people who always climb harder than you because those are the people that you learn from. So you're always
Mhm.
failing not just by lots of folks, but by lots of folks who are able to competently do what you're attempting to do. So
Mhm. Mhm.
there's a real like radical lack of ego that I think you have to cultivate to be able
Mm,
to operate in that space with any degree of comfort. Um,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
that's huge, especially in relationship to like, the rest of my life is mostly ensconced in academic worlds where, I mean, we all know, right? That egos get massively sort of out of control. There's a real radical
Right.
lack of
really.
humility with a lot of folks. Um,
Yes.
and there's something about the machine of the industry, the academic
Mhm.
industry that just like, you know, intensifies that and makes it manifest
Yes.
pretty
Yeah.
wild
Yeah.
ways. Um, Yeah. So I just feel like climbing has become this enormous, like, existential antidote to all of the toxicity of academia. Um,
Mm.
and it's largely, I think, about this falling thing and about being
Mhm.
able to publicly flail and not feel too insecure about it, a little insecure
Mhm.
about it.
Yeah, and you know, it's not as much the case with. So I also I hated bouldering. I still don't like bouldering, actually. Um,
I don't,
it,
I have to say, I don't know if I do. Honestly,
okay.
I do it all the time, but I don't know if
Yeah.
it's the
Okay.
word that I would use. Yeah.
Right. In part because I didn't like being watched, all my failing being watched. Um, and I also didn't like how in a gym setting frequently, well, people just give you their advice without without, you bring up a really good point in the book, which is that something special about climbing as a sport is that everybody's body is going to do the moves differently and it's going to approach a route differently. And so, even though an experienced climber is, they're going to have a greater sense of, what even are the moves that you could make to learn from. At the end of the day, it is still about you inhabiting your body, and you figuring out what doesn't work for your body, and then what does. And um, so the I guess like on that. the way that it forced you into your body because you had to have that kind of knowledge. But also something that I guess like on the topic of failing in front of other people, and I was thinking about how it also forces you, because if you're rope climbing with someone, the people you're climbing with are people that you're putting your life in their hands, and so there's a way in which when you choose someone you're going to go climbing with, it's with this understanding that you will fall at some point, so who are the people that are going to catch you? And I feel like that's another really good metaphor outside of life as well. I mean, it's practically true, and when you go climbing, you only want to climb with people that you really trust. They're not gonna start losing attention. They're going to be on the rope. They're going to be there the whole time. And so similarly, those are the sort of people that become your family, that become your community. And so I guess linking to what the book initially was supposed to be about was community building.
Right.
Like it does seem like climbing does lend itself to a necessary, not just vulnerability, the vulnerability of failing in front of other people, but also community, where you really have to depend on other people and trust other people. So I don't know if there's anything in there, a thread that you wanted to pick up.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because there's nothing. So, the book started being about this queer and trans climbing convention, but there's actually nothing. One of the things I learned in the years helping run that is that there's nothing about holding this sort of identity marker that actually makes anybody implicitly more trustworthy when it comes to climbing. So, and not that I don't know if anybody would presume that it would, but what it
Mm-hmm.
marked for me was that, there's this sort of phantasm of community that we talk about, like the queer and trans community, right? But
Mm,
when I look at the people who actually populate my climbing community, lots of them are queer and trans, lots of them aren't, and lots of them are people that I probably wouldn't necessarily gravitate towards out of
mm.
shared interest were it not for climbing. Um, and
Cool.
what's interesting about that is I think that I will often find myself implicitly trusting somebody and not even sure why it is, except for I have a sense that they're attentive to other people's vulnerability.
Mm.
And
Oh,
yeah, which
yes.
which is not, it's a maybe a trait of attention, but it's not has nothing to do with identity and nothing to do with a presumed commonality of experience, but everything
Yes.
to do with how somebody actually pays attention to the world around them. Um, and you can
Mm,
see it pretty quickly in other people. And you can also see
mm,
how sort of like careful and accountable they are as they navigate the public space of the gym or the crag. And
mm,
those are the people that I want to climb with, and those are the people that I
mm,
trust, right? Um,
mhm,
and some of my most harrowing experiences climbing are agreeing to climb with somebody that I know and maybe am friends with in other areas of my life who actually doesn't have that degree of attention. Um,
mm,
yeah, and I could give lots of horror stories about, like almost potential ground falls or realizing that a
mm,
belayer has way too much slack in the rope system so that if I did happen to fall, I would take a horrible fall. Um, it's happened more than once. It happened to me really
mm,
recently, actually. And this is my own lesson because I am
mm,
good-natured sometimes, and I'm like, yeah, you can catch me, and then I'll realize midway up a route, like, oh no, that was me being too trusting. Um,
yeah.
or too overconfident in my own sense that I'm not going to
Mm,
want to get.
mm.
But anyway, yeah, that's the attention to vulnerability that I think is key.
I love that. I love that too, just for like broadly thinking about community and the people that we want around us, like knowing that life is a process of failing as well.
Yeah.
Off of the rock
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, yeah,
Well,
it's like you want to be with people that can see when you're about to do it and are there
Mhm.
to assist in the ways that they can.
Yes, right. Yeah, exactly.
and it seems that would seem to also relate to the one of the other practices that you say is really important is the co-regulation of
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
people's anxiety. which, I think this kind of, you talk about this early in the maybe in the second chapter, um but then in the next one we were talking about the failure to self-arrest. These two things seem to kind of go together on a certain level in climbing and in life. Having someone you can trust to help you kind of be calm down, to
Yeah.
sort of uh calm what is a kind of natural anxiety about being high off the ground with very
Mm.
little foothold.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. In the book, I tell this story about my friend Guy, who I haven't talked to in years. So if you're watching this, Guy, I miss you and we should hang out. Um, but he was somebody I met when I
Mhm.
lived for a period of 2 years, which was actually when I also met you, Ashley, in Bloomington,
Mhm.
Indiana. And
Mhm.
he lived at like a punk house in town, and I met him sort of through that. Um, and there was something, again, this is like one of those things like how do you come to trust somebody implicitly? He had this energy that was extremely calm and sort of collected in the midst of the
Mhm.
relative chaos of a group house. Um,
Mhm.
so it instantly marked. I was like, how is this man so
Mhm.
together and like mellow in the midst of this total chaos? Um, and it turned out he was a guide. So he was
Mhm.
one of the first people who, I think he might have been the first person to take me climbing, actually.
Mhm.
And then several months in to the very beginning of my climbing career, he took me out west to Colorado to do my first multi-pitch climb. And in the context of that multi-pitch climb, we encountered a coyote, which for people out west is like no big deal. It's like, oh, it's a coyote. They're on the streets of Los Angeles, whatever. But I was not. I was a total stranger to that environment. So I was, a couple pitches into my first multi-pitch climb, and there was a coyote on this ledge, and
Mhm.
was like sniffing around our gear, and guy seemed completely comfortable with it and totally fine. And I was like, this thing is going to eat us alive and we're going to die
Mhm.
here on this ledge, which is not a rational response. But again, I had like no idea how to navigate the environment, so
Mhm.
know what I needed to be worried about or not to be worried about. Um, and in that moment of panic, you know, I started to spiral just about all of the potential
Mhm.
horrors that could occur, right? A thunderstorm could roll in, we could have a technical incident with our gear and fall many, many feet, die or be severely injured. I just spiraled out of control because of this coyote on this ledge.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, And, then I like lowered and I was like, I don't think I can do this today. And
Mhm.
Guy, and I can't tell you exactly like what the magic was, but Guy basically talked me down from like total mortal panic and was like, it's chill. We can keep climbing or like hike back to the campsite if you want. Either way, it's fine. And I
Mhm.
was like,
Mhm.
wow, that was better than any therapy I had experienced. Like, this is
Yeah.
incredible. And what I've come to learn is like you cultivate that ability when you put yourself, to go back to my criticism of Vanderkoop that you mentioned,
Yeah. Right.
put yourself in situations that are risky within a certain margin on a regular
Mhm.
basis. Because part of how you navigate those situations well is like learning how to dial back the panic and focus on the task at hand. And
Mhm.
I hadn't historically put myself in situations like that. And
Mhm.
when I started climbing, I just began to do it more and more frequently. And I don't know if I'm the most calm person on the face of the planet. I don't think I'll ever not be somewhat anxious. But
Mhm.
the way that I am now and the way that I was 15 years ago when I started climbing is, I mean, it's a remarkable shift.
Mhm.
I really think it is just about that relationship to risk.
Yeah. I also wondered something that came to mind, because you sort of bristle at the label of a hobby of it being a hobby, right? Um, and it seems like when we think of the word hobby, it's like kind of frivolous, but also maybe sort of what we do to escape reality. I think is like another way of thinking what a hobby is. And maybe it can calm down a nervous system, sure, but maybe not necessarily teaching you those kind of long term skills to help you consistently confront reality. And it seems like that is sort of a difference between something that is sort of something we fill our time with and maybe escape the world from, and then a practice or like I guess a word that came to my mind a lot as I was reading the book was discipline. Of course, I'm in religious studies, so of course the word discipline popped into my head a lot. um, because there is a lot about it that is very discipline like, a disciplining of your body, a disciplining of your nervous system, a disciplining of the way that you're thinking, and but a discipline that also long term it seems like is giving you these skills, um, so that when your mother dies, so that when your father dies, so that when you get the second book review and it's not good, that you have this set of skills basically that have been cultivated through the discipline. That that's not a hobby. That's like, yeah, it's a discipline that enables you to confront reality rather than escape it. And that was a kind of through line for me in the book because I was trying to, like, sometimes climbing seems like an escape. Like there are moments where you talk about it as a way to escape death, to escape, like to leave the bed, your parents' bedside, do something different, like get into your body instead of in your mind. But but it's not ultimately an escape. It seems like it's ultimately giving you disciplining all aspects of you so that you can confront those difficult realities.
Yeah, yeah. I was actually thinking, so one of my favorite illustrations in the book is the illustration of the car wash. That so my friend Susie,
Yeah.
who I like love so much, did the illustrations for this book and
Okay.
met at
Yeah.
like a zine festival in Tennessee many years ago. Oh, I think you can't see it because of your settings, Sean.
Here,
Sean's trying to pull it
here,
up.
let me, is it, I don't know where I am here.
I think
Is
you got
it,
to go back a little bit further.
go back a little further?
I can
Okay.
probably do it too. It's so funny because it's clear that you're holding something, but you can't see. I
Yeah.
got it.
Okay.
Is this
Yeah.
There you
so,
go. There you go.
so this is actually an escape, right? Like in the book, I talk
Yeah.
about how when my mom is sick and my partner and I are helping caretake for her, I realize that the car wash that we somehow have a membership to, thanks to Libby, my partner, who like takes care of these very practical things in our life. I realize it's around the corner from my mom's apartment, and I'm like, I'm gonna go to this car wash because I need to get out of this apartment and I don't know what else to do. So I spend a lot of time in the car wash over the months that my mother is dying. And that's totally an
When
escape.
you say that, you mean you go in the car wash, you go through the car wash, and you go back through the car wash. Like,
Again.
like just so
Yes,
people
yes.
know, it's not that you're just going and like that is a very clean car,
It's
very
an
clean car.
extremely clean
So
car.
clean. So
Yes,
clean.
so clean. So clean.
Was the foam rainbow? Was it that really
Oh yeah,
nice? Like, oh,
absolutely. So
so
it feels
calming.
like a party
Yeah.
kit, And there was a
Yeah.
Trader Joe's across the street. So I'd like go get a hummus wrap at the Trader Joe's and then
Yeah.
eat it and go through the car wash over and over again. And then, get back to the house like 45 minutes later, an hour later, people be like, "What'd you do?" I'd be like,
That's
"Who
like
knows?"
the best argument for one of those car wash memberships that I've heard. Like I was,
Hmm.
they offer it, and I always look at it and go, I don't know, I don't need to wash it that much. But if that is the activity, it's like I'm just gonna go be at the car wash for an hour. Then
So
that's a
Yes,
different
soothing.
proposition.
So
absolutely.
soothing.
Absolutely. So yeah, so that for me is like a legitimate escape. That was just a moment where I
Yeah.
could, shut my brain off and be away for a little while. But the climbing, yeah, not so much because climbing necessitates, even if you're just doing it at a gym, you have to sort of do constant risk evaluation and
Mm.
decide at any given moment whether you're going to proceed with what you intended on doing, which means you have to stare at the potential of disaster in the face over and over again and like make calculated decisions in relationship to that. And I think that that discipline, and it is totally a discipline, allowed me to look at the reality of, my parents dying, but also the way that I had used, I mean, basically had engaged in substance abuse for years as an escape and as a way to avoid looking at certain aspects of my own reality that included my relationship with my parents, but not only.
Mm.
Yeah, look that more squarely in the face too. I think if it hadn't been for the
Mhm.
cultivation of that discipline with climbing, I would have been unable to stare these other things down in the way that I was.
Mm. Mhm. Is that, would you say, sort of, because there are also some moments where there's a moment where you talk about addiction transfer, and climbing is sort of like referenced as your addiction transfer, but it's definitely not. I don't know if you could like say a little more. You were just talking to it, but like maybe say a little more about like what you see as those kinds of like sometimes blurry lines between, I don't know, like something that an addiction where you escape, and then something like what climbing was to you. I don't know. That was something that kind of stood out to me. That sometimes it seemed like there was a like an addiction aspect to it, but then sometimes it was very clear eyed. Like sometimes you would just found yourself there and you didn't know why and what you were doing, and then sometimes you were clear eyed about why you were there. So I don't know if you could speak to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's honestly both. And when I thought about
Yeah.
climbing in relationship to addiction transfer, it definitely is true that I've had moments where when things get very difficult life-wise, I
Yeah.
become hyper focused on
Uh,
like climbing V8, like I don't know,
yeah.
like I do suspect I know what's happening there, and it is just,
Sure.
yeah, it's exactly what you would imagine it is.
Yeah.
So in that respect, climbing can totally operate as a kind of addiction transfer,
Mm.
right? Where
Mhm.
back in the day, to deal with stressful situations, I would just get totally fucked. And now I'm like
Mhm.
gonna overcome to the point of injury because I really know
Right.
this problem, which again, in the grand
Yeah.
scheme of things, maybe isn't that important. So I
Right.
transfer my attention there. But then I climbed simultaneously with, being a pretty intense alcoholic, like maybe 10
Mm.
of those years. I
Yeah.
was doing both simultaneously. And I kind of knew the whole
Right.
time that, on the one hand, I thought I'd probably be a better climber if I stopped drinking, like just practically. And that was
Sure.
part of the
Mhm.
reason why I was able to be like, maybe I should stop. This would be, even if there are no other silver linings, it would probably be,
Mhm.
I'm at least a great.
Mhm.
And that,
Mhm.
for me, as obsessive as I am about this sport, is a huge incentive. Um,
Mm. Mhm.
and and then the other thing was that the fact that I was climbing and also doing sort of other endurance sports
Mhm.
meant, well, simultaneously an alcoholic, before being in recovery, meant that I was on this sort of like yo-yo, but I was always very intensively aware of how the substance use was impacting my body, which I don't think everyone can say. Um, that was, yeah, that was interesting. So, like, I recognized the symptoms of what would probably have become fatty liver disease really early because I was so sort of attuned to,
Yeah.
in bad ways, what was happening at the sort of,
Mhm.
at the corporeal level.
Right.
And it meant that I had a lot of guilt about drinking because I would see exactly how it was impacting my performance. Um,
Mm.
But I think ultimately it made it a little bit easier to stop because I could so clearly see immediately all of the physical benefits, even if
Right.
the mental and emotional ones were slower for me to realize.
Mm. Mhm.
I don't know if I answered. I don't even remember what
Yeah, you
that.
did. You did. Yeah, you did. And but also it made me there. There's also, so I started climbing after my husband died, and I became a single mom, um, and I also started running, and I also started weightlifting all at the same time. And you bring up Miranda July's book in this, and just this sort of like something that I think your book helped me recognize about why I started doing those things so intently. Because like I think sometimes I would tell people, well, my kids need me around. Like I've got to be really healthy. I've got to be really strong if I'm going to be a good, solo mom. And I've got to like, it helps with the grief, to work through in my body. But you, in reading your book, it made me realize actually the reason that I like going to the climbing gym and going on a run and going to the gym and lifting weights is that it's just for me, nobody else. It's just for my body too. I think that it's helped me value my body and its capacities, and also my mental capacities too, because climbing can feel really scary. And what we were talking about, co-regulation, those moments when you feel scared and you figure out how to keep going, that's amazing too. But like the physical capacity, the climbing and those sort of like endurance sorts of activities, is I think it's part of why I did it. And reading your book just helped me realize that there is a way in which you can, well, our society has a way of suggesting that the body is something that can be sort of, I don't know, thrown away, but when you engage in a practice where you put yourself in your body like that, it can be sort of an act of resistance. But of course, reading your particular stories, that is so fraught because you've spent so much of your life not wanting to be in your body, which makes it even more of an act of resistance when you just push through all of the fraught histories and trauma, to embody, to accept your body. There's not a question there, but those were some of the thoughts that.
I mean, I was thinking as you were talking, Ashley, about how we often have to justify the time that we take to just be a body in the world.
Yes.
Whether that's in the context of, working out, or whether that's in the context of rest, or whether that's in the context of just trying to sleep 8 hours a night.
Yes.
And yeah, I mean, it's so true that the number of times I've heard people say, like, yeah, I have to show up because I need to be a strong parent, or I need to, this is for others, this is not for myself. It's like, that might be true, but it's also true that we live in a culture that makes us feel guilty for just wanting to feel some modicum of like peace and joy in the movement or rest of the bodies that we're in. And yeah, and I think climbing, I mean, I suck at meditation. I've tried for years. I have a practice, I guess, but it's like I'm not good at it. I know that's not the point, but I still haven't gotten beyond that, obviously. Um, but for me, yeah, climbing was so, it's like I needed the edge of the risk that climbing has to
Yeah, sure.
actually force myself to kind of trick myself actually into being fully present. Um, Sort of like, yeah, a fully embodied but also mental way, um, in a given moment. I know it's the point of meditation, but it didn't work for me. And I suspect a lot of people who are obsessive climbers also have this relationship to medication or medication. That's hilarious, actually.
Yeah, that's a good flip.
Meditation or
That's a really,
medication?
Meditation,
yeah,
Medication, they're all
both.
the
hard to
same.
say. It's hard to
Well, I
say.
was
Oh, that's great. Oh
well,
my God.
the your kind of discussion of risk and the body and who gets to be in the body. This sort of reminds me of early in the book. You talk about Jamie, her parent,
Yeah,
um,
Jamie Logan.
Jamie Logan, um, and and who is a kind of veteran climber, and scales this massive, what is I forget the name of the elevation that
Oh
the
my God. I mean, Jamie, I write a little bit about her in the book, but she's done so much. She's like an old school first ascensionist badass who's put up, you know, summited just massive, massive mountains and is now like in her 70s and climbs 513, which is incredible. And I mean, maybe not way harder these days, but still a bit harder than I can climb. And most other people in the world, actually. But yeah, yeah, Jamie.
she has so you quote her as saying that uh, that coming out as trans was harder than any of these ascents.
Oh yeah, she was
Uh,
talking about the emperor face. That
that yeah, that the risk of ascent was nothing compared to the terror of being trans in the world. And you say no climb is as hard as the act of simply showing up in the world, embodying the malign truth of trans existence. Um,
Mhm.
and I wonder if climbing has helped mediate or not medicate and not but modulate that terror in some way, or if part of that is also the community that you have had. I mean, throughout the book you talk about, running like you were talking about, like running into these other queer and kind of trans climbers, and then at the end you kind of mentioned, oh, by the way, I also like created this massive community of them. So
Mhm.
by the way,
Mhm.
I may have created some queer and trans climbers, but I wondered if that, if the practice of climbing has helped
Mhm.
to, I mean, you talk about it helping to make you feel more at home in your body, but to kind of modulate that terror in a way.
Mhm.
Yeah. 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 It's a good question, and I feel like there's so many different routes into an answer. But one of the things that I think climbing has done is constantly put the other shit into perspective. So, like, at the end
Mm.
of the day, I know that regardless of what the Supreme Court decides, right? We're
Mm,
talking
mm,
today in the aftermath of a Supreme Court verdict that was predictable, but basically um, said that the bans on trans women and trans girls in sports in the states where they exist would be allowed to stand. Didn't say a lot more than that, but it did make that uh, law.
and
Um,
I was thinking about it, especially because that's from West Virginia, and West Virginia is where you go for this
have the climbing
climbtastic
convention. Yeah,
Mhm.
convention.
yeah, in the New River Gorge, which is one of my all-time favorite places to climb. Um, and yeah, so in the aftermath of that decision, I've been thinking a lot about how what I was going to say is at the end of the day, right, I have climbing, regardless of what any sort of institution or juridical body says about the legitimacy of my body and its ability to participate in public space or participate in the world. I live 20 minutes away from a bouldering spot and our local sport, Craig, and I know that I can go out there and run into friends and be in the world, in my body, in a space that's not safe, but that is a space where I'm able to show up, you know, in all of the ways. And those are deliberately cultivated spaces. And I think with Homo Climbtastic, what we were trying to do, and what folks are still trying to do, I mean, it still exists. It happens the third week of July every year in the New River Gorge, is build a space where the reason you were there was because you were obsessed with climbing and you happen to be queer and trans, and the broader climbing community historically hasn't always met that with the sort of dignity and grace that it should be met with. Um, and that's radically changed actually in the 15 years that I've been climbing. I think now
Mhm.
climbing culture, in terms of sort of broader sports cultures in the US and globally, is much more queer and trans affirmative than a lot of other sports.
Mhm.
But I think in large part, that's the result of the deliberate cultivation of spaces like Homo Climbtastic and the sort of queer and trans affinity groups that started cropping up in all of these local gyms as a result of, or not a direct result of, but after we started organizing this convention, then we were like, we need mentorship in gyms. So you should start
Hmm.
a
Mhm.
community group in your
Mhm.
gym and then bring a cadre of folks down to the convention every year so we can all climb together. It's like the groundswell shift around queer and trans inclusion and climbing happened because folks were like, fuck it, we're going to build these spaces regardless of what is said about our ability to show up. Um,
Hmm.
Mhm.
and and yeah, the fact that we have this huge, super queer and trans affirming convention in the heart of West Virginia, which
Mhm.
outsiders often think of as, like backward, regressive. Um, yeah, it's not, but
Mhm. Mhm.
I think it's just, it's a it's good to remember what's possible, even
Mm.
really
Well, and
antagonistic.
I mean, not just the groups that come there, but the way that the community effectively welcomes them, and even
Absolutely.
throws up the pride flags and the progress flags when they show
Yeah.
up.
Yeah, I mean, you go to Fayetteville during Homo Climbtastic, and the whole town is just, I mean, it's a pride party. Like the whole
Mhm.
week that the convention happens, it's
Mhm.
kind of incredible, and it's a lot. You know, Fayetteville is distinct because it has a long-standing outdoor culture. So you know, there are climbers that live there full time. There are whitewater rafters and whitewater kayakers that live there full time, mountain bikers that live there full time. So the town has a rich history of a dirtbag dwelling, I guess would be the
Mm, mhm, mhm,
so you know, it's unlike maybe some other places in the Appalachian South, but actually I think in this respect it's very much like many other places in the Appalachian South. It's like Boone, North Carolina, for instance. Um,
mhm,
it's like Slade, Kentucky, in the heart of the Red River Gorge, right? So, yeah, I think that if we can have these kinds of incredible spaces
mhm.
in the heart of, you know, the place that JD Vance pretends he's from, he's not actually from, um, then, you know, there's a lot more that's possible. And I don't know, I'm just
Mm,
thinking about that a lot in the aftermath of this Supreme Court decision. I'm
mm,
rambling, but yeah.
Yeah. Uh, well, so I did wonder. And one of the things that I notice on the back of the book is that the blurbs are from climbers or climbing scholars, and one of the things you mention in the book is, you know, this moment where somebody at the gym, the climb gym, kind of mentions that they found your book, you know, an earlier book, and kind of like was reading it, um, and so that this was kind of a convergence of these worlds. And so I wondered, you know, now that you've come out as a climber, if there's been, you know, how has that, has that kind of convergence of worlds worked for you? Like, are you getting it? Like, how has there been a collision here, or is it?
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird to have the worlds meet, actually. It's really been strange, and I feel like they're only starting to, so we'll see what I say
Yeah, it
about
doesn't
this.
come out until next week, so they can't find it in the bookstore, much less the used bookstore.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So it's like, wow, what's this gonna look like? But I sweetly, you know, the guy who manages our local gym, who's lovely, um, saw me post about the book on social media and was like, "Do you want to do a release party at the gym?" And I was like, "Oh God!" And like
Oh,
read all this stuff out loud, to all the folks that I just climb with regularly. Because the great thing about the gym is, you know, I'm like go there and they don't give a fuck who I am. They don't care what I
yes, right.
think. I'm just like, oh, what's the beta on this fucking V5 you're working on? Like that's our relationship. So for them to you know read the book and to know that I'm a writer and to know that this is the kind of stuff I do, it's like a little stressful for me actually.
Yeah.
But that said, you know, the worlds, my sort of academic worlds and climbing worlds are already overlapping a little. Like one of my current PhD advisees, I met, well, I met when they started the PhD program at Penn State, but they were like, prior to that, they had been to Homo Climbtastic. They worked for the
Mm.
Access Fund. They lived out of their van in the New River Gorge. And when they were admitted to the philosophy and WGSS programs at Penn State, one of my senior colleagues was like, ah, we got you a climber. So, you know, like, so that's happened, and that's a sort of interesting meshing of the worlds. Um, and it's also the case that I do climb with a lot of academics, actually, and
Mhm,
that's largely
mhm,
the product of living in a college town or living in various college towns for the last
mhm,
15 years, or folks with some sort of loose affiliation to various universities. But again, right, what makes those relationships beautiful is that we don't tend to talk about work when we're together. Uh,
mhm,
yeah.
mhm.
Yes, the more you can leave the economy behind, the
At
more.
least forget about it for a little while.
Yes.
Yeah.
Uh, I don't know, Ashley, do you have another any other question you want to
The last
ask?
one I was thinking of was just when you talk about fun, like you want like this was like part of your decision, like to be sober. You say I don't have it in front of me, but to do more fun shit, but fun shit
Yeah.
that doesn't like kill you, right?
Uh,
So I guess my just like why is it important to do something fun? Why is fun so important?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, we have like a limited number. So both my parents passed, right? And I was like, this is not a unique epiphany, but I was like, wow, our days are numbered. Interesting.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
am spending a number of hours of my life hungover, which means that I'm not able to do all of the fun shit that I think I want to do whenever I
Mhm.
have a kick the bucket. Um,
Mhm.
so I began to I got sober in part because I was like, I need to focus on getting this fun shit done. And not like I had a bucket list or anything, but I was like, I need to spend more of
Yeah.
my life doing that and less of my life, you know, around walking around the house in my boxers, like with no energy. Um,
Yeah.
so I do enough of that anyway, right? It's like I don't need to
Right. Right.
make this problem for myself. Um, and so I think that over the last several years, right, since I've been sort of in recovery, um, I've just started deliberately prioritizing like having fun in the woods with my friends.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm constantly, like right now I'm in the midst of planning 3 or 4 trips in the next few months. Like every spare moment
Yeah.
of time I have is about prioritizing that because that's
Mhm.
what I love. And, the
Mhm.
amount of time we have on Earth, it's made me like very, very aware of the fact that
Yeah.
it won't be forever. And also, right, aging, I want to be,
Yeah.
I want to be climbing as long as Jamie Logan climbs, right?
Right.
Sure.
Yeah.
But if that's
Right.
going to be the case, I have to stop. I have to not self-sabotage. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. And I think I was also thinking too, just that there's a way in which fun feels resistant, fun, but especially like fun when you are in a body that has felt like violence could happen to you at any time, or just that so much of life feels serious all the time. Just walking outside can feel serious.
Hmm.
So just I think I really appreciated the idea that fun that fun can be like a real meaningful mission actually.
Absolutely. It's co-created. So it's also a collective
Hmm.
project. And when you have
Yes, right.
fun as a collective project, it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a good orientation to life. And it also bleeds over into everything else that I do too. Like, what does it mean
Right.
to develop pedagogy or to think about plotting a course where the
Mm.
focus is on collective fun?
Fun. Oh,
Learning
totally.
can
Yeah.
happen along the way, but it's like if you have the
Right.
emphasis on fun, just like learning happens along the way with climbing, right? But maybe
Hmm.
shift that emphasis. I think something profound happens.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Cool. This
Well,
was fun.
This
this
was
was
very,
fun.
yeah.
Yes.
Thank you all for having me on. This is so great. And it's really, really good to meet you, Sean, but also to see you, Ashley. We need to go climbing
Yeah.
soon. And I want you
I
to
would
take
love that. I
take
mean,
that.
I'm in North Carolina, so
Yeah,
got some
I'll
good
come
climbing
down.
around here.
It's not too
Okay.
far. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything else you want to plug? I mean, everyone should check out the book. It's a good summer read. In that it kind of
Hmm.
gives you get to think about some things, but also uh, kind of learn about climbing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also there's really cute pictures too.
There really
Cute,
are.
Pictures are
cute pictures. Yeah, I
very
guess
cute.
the last thing that I want to say is I know I already mentioned my friend Susie Kelly who did the illustrations. But Susie Kelly, yeah, check out her work. She's done a zine called Girls and Thieves for a million years.
Mm. Mm.
She runs the Johnson City Zine Fest in Johnson City, Tennessee, where I used to live.
Oh,
And
cool.
she's just an all-around badass. So I want to publicly thank her. And hopefully, we've talked about doing graphic novels and other stuff together. So hopefully this is
That's
just one
fantastic.
That'd be cool.
collaboration.
That'd be really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So who
I
knows?
definitely
I think
I'd read that. I'd read that.
Yeah. Big time. Me too.
Well,
Me too.
we can put a link to any of her work in the show notes. So thanks a lot.
cool.
And thanks for joining, Ashley. I'll
Thank
see
you.
you later this week. I guess you're gonna
Yeah. 2 days.
make a trip.
Yeah.
Well, so thanks to all of you who are online joining us. This episode will be available on the Breaking Culture Live YouTube channel later today. So share it with your colleagues and let me know if you have any ideas for future episodes or invitees by emailing at breakingculturelive@gmail.com. Thanks again for joining us. I'm Sean Johnson Andrews, and check out my Substack at breakingculture.substack.com.